Well, Katie, welcome to the Wild Heart Athletics podcast. I really appreciate taking the time to talk to us and share your story with our audience. And I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and tell us about yourself.
Well, hi everybody. My name is Katie. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I was born with spina bifida and scoliosis, and before I had my left leg amputated, I wore two leg braces and a 2-inch leg lift shoe on or lift on my shoe on my left side. In May of 2022, I had MRSA. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and after two pretty intensive surgeries, trying to clear all the infection out, the best option for me at that point was to get a below the knee amputation, which sounds awful, but in reality, it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made for my life. Um, I was on track to get, it's called leg lengthening surgery or the Alizarov surgery. It's where they can either like put a rod in your tibia or your femur and lengthen your leg. And I was going to have to do that, and it was going to be over 2 inches. But after I had my amputation, as awful or as funny as it sounds, the prosthetic does that for me. So I can walk around now with basically any type of shoes that I want to wear, or at least the prosthetic allows me to wear. So I'm a high school teacher. I coach lacrosse. I coach soccer. I have the coolest service dog in the world. His name's Oliver. I played collegiate lacrosse. I have a physics and a science degree, or physics and a biology degree. I just finished my master's plus from Montana State University, and I'm on the inaugural team for the U.S. Amputee women's soccer team, which I'm super excited about. So I think I covered everything, but hopefully Ben can ask any questions if I missed something. But that's a little bit
No,
about
that's
me.
that's awesome. That's so much. I don't know where to start. That's awesome. I tell you what, I think the coolest thing is you just said, correct me if I'm wrong, high school teacher.
Yes, I'm a high school
So
science teacher.
was that always like your aspiration, like even after graduating college and stuff like that, or was that the plan?
Absolutely not. I wanted to just go into something in the biomedical field. Growing up wearing orthotics, I thought that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something in medicine, but I was at a lacrosse camp where I was coaching, and I had one of the coaches pull me aside and basically say, "What are you doing? Go get your teaching license. You need a teaching coach." And I really respected this man, so I listened to him, and I went home that night and I was like, "Mom, I'm gonna go get my teaching license." And she said, "You just finished college. What are you thinking?" And I think it was another like really good decision for me. I, went to Otterbein to get my post baccalaureate degree, so just a post bachelor's, and I got it in physics and physical science. And just kind of from there, I was able to do two different types of passions of mine. I was able to teach people about science, and I was able to and still able to coach. So it was kind of I should have just started with that, but in life you have to, it wasn't a mistake not getting that at first, but I had to, go through my college days and just getting my physics and my biology degree to know all that knowledge, what I can do now when I teach my high school students.
That's perfect. So, how has like teaching and coaching impacted your life?
In many different ways. I think that, teaching is, a lot of people say it's a calling, some people say it's a job. For me, it's just fun. So, you can, wake up every morning and, roll your eyes, moan, "Oh, I have to go to my job." I wake up every morning going, "Sweet, what do I get to do today?" And, I can look at my lesson plans and just, how do I impact one kid? And I think if people just have that perspective around the world, or at least in their life, of how you can impact one person, then there's much more to life that they can achieve. And same thing that happens with coaching. it doesn't matter how many D1 athletes I've had, or D2 or D3, or uh, athletes that haven't, gone on and played college. It's the relationships I've made with their families, and that they can call me and say, "Hey, coach, I'm now at med school." Like, that's more important. And if you hear squeaking, that's my dog. So I apologize for that. He has his sushi roll right now.
That's all right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really cool because like you're able to make an impact like on these kids' lives, which especially nowadays is like one of the greatest thing when it comes to like leadership and mentorship, right? And just having that direct influence over people. I know with my professors, that's kind of their thing is just being able to directly influence and like help someone when they're struggling and things like that. Which you have your own experience with struggles and things, and I'd really love to kind of hear about your high school days because you mentioned that you played lacrosse. So, what kind of got you into that sport?
So I grew up in the 90s, early 2000s. That's kind of my, age to say kind of how old I am. But adaptive sports weren't really showcased back then. So, imagine that if I wanted to be involved in those things, it was a lot of travel. And you didn't want to be labeled really as the handicap kid growing up. And I didn't want that to be my identity. I was just Katie. And so anytime that, we played kickball, I wanted to play kickball. So my group of friends and I, we just figured out that if I needed somebody to run the bases, we just let somebody run the bases. Or I was always like the designated pitcher if we played any sports that always needed a pitcher. Or we're playing football in the backyard, I was the designated quarterback. And it's like, she's small, don't tackle her. Like, just those types of things. Um, I got into lacrosse because when I was playing soccer, the goal got too big. So, like, as funny as that sounds. So, um, and in lacrosse, I played goalie. So a goal's 6 by 6, and the ball is pretty small, but it's also hard as rock. It's pretty dense, but it didn't. My disability didn't matter as long as I made a save. So um, I had a couple coaches just help me figure out how to make each of the types of saves. And, nowadays when you watch goalies play, they do a lot of running outside the goal circle or the crease. 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the style of a goalie. So you had to basically throw a clear on a dime, and I could do that. And I also am pretty smart, so I would watch a lot of film and I could figure out, if number nine's always going to shoot top right, it's probability. So I wasn't the tallest, I wasn't the fastest, but I was always the smartest. So I try to use that logic with the kids that I coach. Is you find something that's your like superpower and you just roll with it. So my superpower was I watched film, I figured out the probability of where kids were going to shoot, and I exposed them. So I ended up playing lacrosse for 4 years at Wittenberg. And again, I was never the disabled athlete at Wittenberg. I was the lacrosse goalie. So it was really interesting for me to kind of transition from, I have my own bike, I rock climb, I, again, played a college sport with a full leg brace and a 2-inch leg difference and a right brace. And now I'm playing amputee soccer. And the perspective is I'm more disabled now, but to me, I'm free. Like, I don't feel that way, but society always looks at it as like, but you wear prosthetics, so you're more disabled. I'm like, you should see me 2 years ago trying to walk. Like, I'm great now. So it's really interesting to kind of see that shift.
Would you mind diving into that? Because you say free, and I think that's a really big word when it comes to anybody, like, gaining that freedom. And so I think people kind of don't understand it. And I'd love to hear kind of your thought process on it and what you mean behind that.
So I say the word free because when you wear two orthotics, uh, running's really not an option for you. Um, and having the shoe lift is, you guys can go eat a Chipotle burrito and, you might gain a pound. If I gain a pound, my back hurts for a week. And it's because of how the weight's just distributed over my shoes. Because if it's a little bit to the left, my entire walking gait's off. So now with the prosthetic, I don't really have to worry about that. Now, if I gain 10 pounds, I need to not do that. But, I have some wiggle room. And to me, that's freedom. Uh, I learned how to run on crutches. And to me, that's freedom. And learning that it's okay not to have my prosthetic on and like use my wheelchair to like walk my dog or to use crutches to go to an event and be able to like spin around people and like get through the crowd. uh, that's freedom to me. And I think that it's really cool. I'm not the last person in line anymore. I'm at least in the middle and the front of the pack.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that like again, like that's what I view as freedom.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that explanation because I know a lot of people don't understand like orthotics and how limiting they can be depending on what they are, whether they're someone that wears it just for like foot pain or someone that actually had to wear it like yourself, like the braces or any kind of braces limiting for a reason. But no, I understand that. And then, so your amputation was an elective choice, correct?
Yes and no. I had MRSA, so
Oh, okay.
um, I didn't feel I had it. So I was because of the spine bifida and the scoliosis, I have very little feeling in my legs. So I was having blisters just because I was relearning how to walk. I had a really uh, intensive hip surgery prior
Mm,
to that. They broke my pelvis in about 4 different places to reset it. Don't wish that surgery on anybody. I've had over 30. That one, the worst. Um, but because my pelvis was reset, I had to reset how I was walking. And when you reset how you're walking, all the pressure sores from the orthotics were changed. So I was at the wound care clinic probably every other week. Now, this was no one's fault by any means, but you're relearning how to walk on your braces, you pressure sores. I can't feel the pressure sores, and one of them just got me. So I, I call my doctor. I was like, hey, my foot's red. She goes, well, does it hurt? No, I can't feel my foot. So I get in to see her on Wednesday, and by Wednesday night, she already called and said my white blood cell count was off the charts and I needed to be admitted. So, and then by Friday, I already had my first surgery. So what they were going to do was like send me home. I had a pick line, so like direct antibiotics straight into my system, and it was kind of the, well, we can see if the antibiotic works. You would have to like be discharged, come back in a month, or you just get rid of the source. So getting rid of the source means getting rid of the ankle. I had 12 screws and a plate in my left ankle from breaking my tibia, fibula, and talus a couple of years back. And MRSA, I didn't feel that. So again, this kind of puts in perspective of, I don't want to say my pain tolerance or my lack of feeling. So like whatever one you want to go with, but if the MRSA hides behind the metal, I just said get rid of it. I wasn't missing anything. The foot was locked at 90 degrees. It never worked. It was a source of an infection that was trying to kill me. Why have it? I was the orthopedic surgeons were talking about it and like they're debriefing before I actually got told I was having the amputation. And they said, it's hard to cut off a limb of somebody like your age, but going through your history, this actually makes sense. And I said, woohoo, what do I do this weekend? They said, watch hockey, because it was during the playoffs. So then I just had to sit and wait. And I get into the operating room before the ortho comes in, and she's like, are you ready for this? And I said, bring it on. Like, I'm not missing anything. Like, I'm just gonna walk in a prosthetic. Going from an orthotic to a prosthetic, I didn't think would be that difficult. So I had to wait till the infection cleared out, and then I was allowed to start getting, going through the casting part of the prosthetic, which to me it was just like walking in a orthotic, but it was a little different. But I'm in the parallel bars, walking back and forth. And I remember my prosthesis going, "Please use the parallel bars." And I'm like, "Why? Like, I don't need to. Like, this is walking in an orthotic. It's just a little different." Then my orthosist comes in and she's like, "Look at her gait. She doesn't have to worry about the shoe anymore. This is great." I'm like, "I know. This is awesome." So it's always this. It really was a blessing in disguise. But I mean, Versa sucks, but like now I have a prosthetic, and to me that's great. So
That's I hear you. And what's interesting is you make it sound like it was such an easy choice when you like list all those things out and go through the process. And but was it that easy, or did you still kind of like, oh, I'm getting rid of a piece of my body? Like, was there like still like some type of emotional
I
tie, or like,
I cried once, and it was when I got home because I saw my shoes, and it was like, crap, I'm not gonna be able to walk until I get a prosthetic. So I was a little annoyed with that, but so I had my parents hide all my shoes. But it really, like, for me, it's all about quality of life. So like,
right,
pros and cons: keep foot, keep leg length discrepancy, keep shoe, ew, keep brace, ew. Like, there wasn't a yay, this is a good idea to keep it. Like, I never looked down at my foot and go, man, I wish I miss my toes, because I couldn't move them. Like, I couldn't move my ankle. It was fused at 90 degrees from breaking it. I couldn't move my toes because of all the other issues that I have. I can't extend my knee because of my spina bifida. So it's for me, it was an easy decision, and I really understand that that's not what a lot of people go through. But for me, like, I was like, take it, go ahead, go, let's go do this now. Like, I want to start rehab so I can walk again. So, but I think that that's been my attitude since I've been like 3 or 4. Like, oh, go do PT. Okay, I'm gonna go do physical therapy. What do I need to do now? Like, actually do the PT. I'm like, well, I'm doing the physical therapy. What's next? So that's always just been me.
so given the spina bifida, the hip surgery, and now with the amputation, has your gait changed for like the better
Yes,
before you had the amputation? Okay.
absolutely. It's uh, I'm like, trying to like not creep on myself, but I'm trying to find like just a video of me walking with my full brace and the 2 inch like shoe lift, and then compare it to what I have now. And like because I go to Hanger Clinic, like Hanger, like all the clinicians there, some of them have been seeing me for 25 years. They're just like, you look great with how you walk. And to me, that right there is like, sweet. What else do I need to do? Like, how do I keep on improving? So it's like the best way to describe it is wear a shoe on your left foot. Don't wear a shoe on your right foot, but lock both your ankles when you walk. But then on your left leg, also lock your knee. And that's how I had to walk for 30 years.
Mm, okay.
So
I
imagine
can see it in my head. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, yeah. So it's like, imagine like just like all the back pain that I've had, the hip pain, just it was pain that I was used to, but longevity and quality of life. It's if we can decrease any of this, then like why not? And it is the funny part of, well, we can decrease this by cutting off part of your limb. And I was like, sweet, let's do this. So
No, and I think that's a great point to like, talk about and that you share is like you said, the quality of life thing. I think that's the biggest factor to take into consideration when it comes to like just anything, especially big decisions like you had to make. A lot of people can sit there and be like, losing this limb, but you're like, well, you're looking at X, Y, and Z with the ankle issues. You've already had the hip surgery. You had spinal bifida, you had the length, you have, A through Z reasons, and you're like, well, this one thing can just basically increase the quality of life. And then, like you said, it brings back to that keyword to use, freedom. So going from having the surgery, now you're working with the prosthetic, getting used to that. What was the timeline from like going into that to um, your amputee soccer that you're a part of now?
So I had my amputation May 22nd, and I started walking September 1st. So that's when so like that right there it's pretty accelerated. I had to wait for like the sutures to heal, and I could only wear it for like an hour. And then I was like, we're gonna push this to 2 hours, and it's gonna be fine. So I did a lot of that. So like just during rehab, one of the like my physical therapist, it was in November, did the so we have this thing called amputee soccer. Are you willing to try it? And I was like, sure. Like I'm an amputee now, so I can try this, right? And you get the laugh because growing up I had no idea this existed. And if you look in part of the rules, if you have a limb difference, which I had, I could have been playing. So I was like, oh, I could have been doing this all my life. So just kind of the like full circle of you know the more we get adaptive sports out there, the better, because I could have been playing amputee soccer my entire life because I had limb difference. So just kind of well, that would have been nice to know. So in uh, November, I, go to this clinic. It was in Central Ohio, just you're going to use these forearm crutches. And at that point, I wasn't cleared to like use the forearm crutches yet, which sounds weird because they didn't want me to go in and out of my prosthetic all the time just because of the volume fluctuation. So they're like, why don't you? I was like, I'll just play goalie. So I'm like, two gloves on my hands, like, but goalies only use one arm. And I was like, what? So, I mean, I was like, all right, like, let's just make this work. So I was playing goalie first. And I played goalie in lacrosse, I played goalie in soccer, and I was like, this isn't going to be that difficult. And again, with the balance, it was great rehab for just walking in my prosthetic. So when I had a surgery called it's targeted muscle reintervention, so they basically reroute your nerves. So when I wasn't allowed to be in my prosthetic and I was cleared to kind of be active, then I tried being a field player. And then it was like, here's forearm crutches. And I was like, what are these things? Like, no idea. Because the stereotype of like using forearm crutches was, at least for me, just growing up, always being around in hospitals, is you were like disabled if you used forearm crutches. And I was like, I don't want to use those because they tried to have me use them when I was younger. And I was like, I don't need them. Like, why are you giving me them? Like, I can walk. So I had to get over that mental hump of like, you're now going to play a sport in the thing that you thought made you disabled, or that's going to be a word today. So it was interesting. So I got fitted for the forearm crutches and, just trying to move around in them. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. And I was like, what is this? I just don't like it. So go to PT, and my physical therapist is like, well, how'd you like it? I was like, I don't like it. Like, I want to be a goalie. Like, why, I'll hide my arm. Like, it's fine. So she's like, why don't we resize you on the crutches? So they resized me. She kind of showed me how to move a little bit better. And the brace that I was wearing was a locked AFO. So basically think about if you're wearing a casting boot. So that's what I was wearing. So I couldn't get any push off to run. So that to me was a hurdle. So I go to Hanger and I was like, I need something with a little bit of flex. So they give me this thing called a kinetic noodle. And I was like, this is the coolest name, kinetic noodle. So I start wearing this kinetic needle and I'm getting ankle mobility again. I haven't had it in 20 years. So getting calf strength back again on my right side, which to me, again, goes back to the whole thing about freedom. And I start liking the crutches. I was like, I can deal with these crutches. So I get a call in uh, January from Nico. He's the captain of the US team. And he's like, how do you feel about coming out to a clinic in New Jersey? And like, you get a random call from somebody, and you're just like, okay, I don't know you. You're calling me to come out to an adaptive thing. Okay. Um, but I went out and I got to meet this awesome community of people that happen to be missing limbs. And they showed me the ropes. They showed me how to use my crutches much better. They showed me how to play the game. And I fell in love with it. I got to take back a lot of things that I learned. And then I went out to another camp in uh, May. So the camp that I went out with May, I broke my brace. So I was so excited to show these coaches that I've been learning how to move better, snap the brace straight in half. And I was like, oh, darn. So I can't move. So, good old Gorilla Glue, Gorilla Duct Tape, spat the ankle, got through the rest of camp. So go back to hanger. And I was like, I need a brace that I can run with. And FabTech created or has this brace that allows that for people with drop foot. So I got one. So now I can run. So I go from, so like, imagine, the May before that, I'm in two locked ankles because I still have the leg brace and the leg discrepancy with, because I don't have my amputation yet, to a year later to I know how to run now on forearm crutches. And then the next camp I'm still running. I know how to run backwards now. And then I get to go to Poland in September to be on the inaugural team. And it just keeps on like moving forward from there. So to me, again, it's the freedom to be able to do those things. So I'm like, this is so cool. Like, one, I can run. And if you have the ability to move, I'm just like, why aren't you? Like, this is so cool. So every day that I can get out on my crutches and move, like right now it's raining, so I'm not doing that because slipping on asphalt on crutches, not the move. But like I'm doing it, and it's great. It brings me so much joy to say like I went on a run today. Like, what you do? And then people are like, what? And I was like, I went on a run today on forearm crutches. What you do today? So, I mean, but that's just me.
No, and I love that you bring that up, especially that, movement, how movement is just so good. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that aspect and like don't really see the benefits of it. And I'd love to kind of hear, your feelings or thoughts on like when you look at your lacrosse career when you were in college versus now you've joined, the amputee soccer team. You're around people that are amputees as well. What's like the significant change or the significant thing that stands out to you being a part of that community versus the lacrosse community?
Honestly, every aspect about it is the same. Like you have people
Okay.
that love the sport, you have people that do the sport, stay in shape, you have the people that, just want friends, and that's across the board. And I've gotten to be a part of both. So to me that's like the cool part. And it's even better is like I can go to a lacrosse community and say like I played lacrosse and I'm an amputee now. I played lacrosse wearing a leg brace, and just being able to bridge the gap is also really cool. And I can do that now with my soccer kids because I coach at the high school that I teach, and it's the not like look at me, I'm awesome. It's the look at me, you can do it too. So when I was going through my rehab and I didn't have my prosthetic yet, I would go out to the field and The kids would, so I can't kick with my left foot. And I would swing my stump and I'll be like, neither can I. And they'd be like, oh crap. And I was like, no, you can laugh. Like, I can't kick with my left foot either. And they would just be like, so we should try. And I'm like, yeah, maybe just a little bit. Because I can't kick with my left foot because I don't have one. You have one. So what's your excuse? There's like, you just don't want to try. So why don't you try a little bit? And then they would try and then they would get it. And I'm like, that's awesome. So it was the fear of trying and failing, not the fear of trying and succeeding. So, and, just being a part of like the amputee community in general is we all have basically like the same struggle of we're missing a part of our body. Either if we were born with it, had cancer, a traumatic event, or like it needed to leave so it didn't kill us. Uh, but we can all say that we're a part of the same community because we all love soccer. So like that's also like still really cool. So it's nice to be able to text one of my teammates and be like, my residual limb hurts today. I've done this, this, and this. What have you done if you've done this, this, and this? And they'll be like, did you try this? And I was like, I haven't got there yet. I'll try that now. Or like as silly as it sounds, like I have to wear pants to school because I'm going to be in the classroom. I've been online the past 4 years. I don't want to wear shorts to work anymore. But because of how my prosthetic's set up, shorts are a lot easier. So I can talk with any of my above the knee amputee teammates and say like, how'd you hem your pants for your prosthetic? Like I can't go to you and ask that. So you'd be like, oh, I don't know. I just like put my pants on. Like, but that's not an awkward question to ask in like one of my amputee friends. We cut our trousers or our pants here, we hem it this way, and then it works. So like that's something that the amputee community can do much better than the lacrosse community. But the workouts are the same. We just do like soccer workouts compared to lacrosse workouts.
Could you speak on your guys' competitiveness and your training? Because I think that's something people don't really understand, like how capable you guys are. Because I mean, you're legit athletes. Like you're playing for the USA.
We like I'm a very very competitive person. I mean, we have fitness chats. We have like our group different our like have we watched film chats, like our small group chats. And because we're across the United States, we have to hold each other accountable. And we have a camp next week, and like I have like a running time I'm supposed to meet, and numbers don't lie. So like I need to make sure that I meet that. So if I said I ran today, and then I go next week and my time's worse, then I was like, I'm lying. I can't do that. A lot of the women are learning the game, and I think that's awesome. So just being a good teammate and making sure that they're comfortable asking questions. Like I grew up playing soccer. I played a collegiate sport. Like I coach soccer, and some of them haven't had that experience. So just being able to grow the sport and uh, still have that competitiveness, but not in the way of like I'm better than you, because I'm not. It's the let's grow together and let's like be a team and let's be Team USA.
Do you have like a daily training plan you follow?
I have my own. I work with a couple of different trainers, and with my other medical, I don't want to call them issues, but stuff. Uh, I have specific things I need to do for those. So like my training regimen's going to be different than like one of my teammates, because I have to focus a lot on strengthening my right calf, because like my neuro connections to my right calf sometimes just don't work. So if
Hmm.
one of my teammates did that, that's not going to help them. I mean, it could, but it's not specific. It doesn't like specifically help them. And as silly as it's like, there's a lot of science behind being an amputee. So I'm a below the knee amputee on my left side, and I use a right leg brace. So my training and how I run is different than an above the knee amputee if you switch the sides, or someone who doesn't have their hip or their pelvis, because how the center of mass whole thing works. I could get into the physics of it, but
Hmm.
I don't want to bore everybody. But just based off of how we run, it's a pendulum. So if the weight's different on the level of the leg, like how we're exerting energy is different. And I have a really good upper body. So like I train that a lot. And I'm a lower if I'm a below the knee amputee and I have a strong upper body, am I going to overcompensate by using my shoulders more compared to somebody that has a working calf and who doesn't have a strong of upper body? So like those are things that I think about.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense, right? The specific needs that you need, given whether it's medical or, like you said, above the knee, below the knee, or even at the hip. Because I talked to Sarah, and like she's different, compared to you. Looking at her, because it's part of her. I think it's like right at the hip, if not just part of her hip is gone. And so, like you said, that's different. But
So
what
how we
about
kick
like?
is totally different.
Okay, would you mind
So
explaining that?
so like Sarah can point her toes. My toes are locked. So if you think of like our swing through,
Mm.
Sarah's counterbalance is going to be on her arm and in her core because she doesn't have the counterbalance of a limb. My counterbalance is my limb, but I can't point my toes. So I'm using either the inside or the outside of my ankle. But, in soccer, everybody's always like, lock your ankle, lock your ankle. I never have to worry about that because my ankle's always locked. Or people always go like, "Ow, you stepped on me," and I'm like, "I didn't feel it. Like I'm 100 pounds. Like I really hurt you. Like what happened?" But like I have carbon fiber braces. Like I have a carbon fiber brace. Like and I stepped on you. So apparently it hurts. I don't feel anything. But like just like how we kick's different. I run better backwards than I do forwards because how my brace is set, I can push off a lot easier from like the ball of my foot and like my heel, and I can get a lot of push off. When I'm trying to go forward, I really have to find like the sweet spot of the carbon fiber plate to get my momentum forward. So, it's looking and learning those types of things.
So, how long is it taking you to like conceptualize that and figure out like the sweet spot, or is that something you're still like working on?
Well, I broke one of the Fab Tech braces. um, There's a trend. I
Yeah,
don't know if you've seen it. So
I'm
Fab,
figuring it out.
yeah. So they call it like my sports brace. So the angle is different, and then I have like my walking brace. So I got the sports brace like a month and a half ago, and I just got my walking brace back. And there is a difference between the two when uh, when I'm walking with them and when I'm playing with them. So it's not just like, oh, you put on a pair of sandals, then you put on your shoes. It's like I've never worn heels before, but it like people say it's like going from like heels to flats. Like that's the comparison because like the angle that they have me in the sports one is pretty. I mean, it's not that, but it's pretty aggressive. So I'm already forward on my knee. So then my hips are forward. So I'm already like in a pre like let's go. So, but I like them. They make me run. I haven't broken that. I haven't broken yet. Again.
Yeah, knock on wood. I hear
Yeah.
you there. Oh, breaking things. I don't know. That's
I
I
always say
guess yeah.
I'm 100 pounds, maybe 102 soaking wet. And if I can break carbon fiber, they need to check the weave, or they just need to make it better.
Yeah, probably make it better. Which is cool and interesting because prosthetics are constantly evolving and constantly getting better. It just takes time. But
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm speaking to someone that understands that,
Oh
especially with
yeah.
your physics degree too.
Yes.
So, or the combination of physics and physical science, which is just baffle me, by the way.
Yeah.
Physics was not my strong suit.
Well, because I didn't teach it to you. I teach it using
uh,
superheroes, sports, and whatever's relatable. So, gotta make it fun. So,
there you go. So that's why. So you're the cool teacher, is what I'm taking it from this conversation.
you learn something from me. Doesn't mean that I'm cool. It's you should walk away learning something. I think
That's
that's
fair.
I think that's more important.
So when going back to your lacrosse days, you mentioned that like, and I think it's things have gotten better as far as like society being aware that like adaptive sports existed, and like you know in the early 90s, kind of when you were getting brought up, when I was getting brought up, no one really talked about it. It wasn't as advertised like it is, and social media has done a little bit better job. But in your opinion, or what do you think would be a great way to really start bringing awareness to the adaptive like sports?
I think it kind of just starts with the youth. So, like you go to like your youth rec center and you sign your kid up for basketball. But if you're a parent and your kid's in a wheelchair, you're not going to take your kid to sign up for basketball if there's not wheelchair basketball there. Why would you put your kid in that situation? Or if your kid has cerebral palsy and they want to play baseball or softball, you're not going to go to your youth league and say, make accommodations for my kid. So there already just has to be those accommodations there. I was fortunate enough that when I was playing soccer, I could keep up with them for the most part. And then playing goalie, you don't have to run. Or on the swim team when I did swimming, it's the backyard pool swim team. The people that wanted to go select on swim team went select. I just like to swim. But I think just you know getting the word out there that there are things for these kids and for adults. Like because I'm not a kid anymore, but it's where do you get this information? You get this information from the local community centers. You get it from the doctor's offices. You get it from the clinicians. Uh, you get it from like the schools. So, I remember, like the folders. Like you would get these flyers, and you have to put them in your backpack. Um, if you're in a wheelchair and you see everybody on the flyer and they're walking, you don't hand that to your parents because I know, at least for me, I could still walk, but I never saw a flyer that had braces on it. So, it's kind of that thing. I think society today is doing a much better job of incorporating, somebody with limb difference on a flyer, somebody in a wheelchair, somebody in forearm crutches. Like that diversity is out there, just so people with disabilities like they can be seen. I remember, growing up watching like cartoons, and no one wore braces, no one was in a wheelchair, no one had crutches, and now there's TV shows with a kid that wears braces or he's in crutches or has a prosthetic, and I think that is definitely helping.
Are you like doing anything to try to get the word out and bring awareness?
Every day. Whatever I can do to just like share one that, at least with like amputee soccer exists, but uh, you know, in like my local town and area, just like me walking around and like I'll go practice outside, I'll go to our track and I'll run around on my forearm crutches. And if kids ask, I tell them, I'm like, hi, like my name's Katie and I'm an amputee. I got it because I was sick, but now I play soccer on the US team and it's pretty cool. So I think it's just more of that. Kids are curious, people are curious. They see that someone looks different, they want to ask the questions, and I let them ask the questions. And there's a way to ask the question. So, like when I've gone to elementary schools, I've always asked people, um, I've always taught the kids of, say, like, can I ask? you a question? And then usually people are like, yeah, sure, what? And then I would say, like, if they have something on their legs, you say, like, can I ask about your legs? Because then it gives the person the power to say yes or no. So, like, it opens up that door, and it's a lot easier instead of just, pointing and saying, like, they're a robot. And when I get that, I go, yes, I am. I'm like, I am Iron Woman, and I am the best.
Mm.
But like for some people, like that's embarrassing. Like they don't want to be pointed out in the middle of like a crowd that they're different. I'm like, yes, please give me the center of attention. I am all about it. But some days I'm not. Like you could catch me on a bad day. But definitely with like spreading the word, through social media, just talking with people, doing things like this. It's very easy to spread positive words. So I would rather spread positive words than negative words.
Yeah, you make a really good point too. Like you said, positive words are a whole lot better. And I like how you approach the subject of, an able-bodied approaching someone with an adaptation and just saying, "Can I ask a question?" I've not heard anything like that before, so I really appreciate like you kind of sharing that because Sarah and I had that conversation, and she said the best interaction she's ever had with someone was just like I guess it was at a store. They were like, if I can help you in any way, just let me know. And that was it. They didn't like ask if she needed help. They let her do her thing. They were just like, if you need anything, holler. And she said that to her was just what she needed to hear.
Yeah. And like Sarah's and my disability is quite different. Um, so like for me, I walk every day with prosthetic. So unless I fall on my face, like I got it. So, but if I have my forearm crutches, my hands are gone. Like I yeah, I'm not the best hopper. Or if I'm in my wheelchair, uh, it's like it's a whole different level of mobility that's going on. I'm most comfortable in my prosthetic, but I also look disabled in my prosthetic. I look disabled anyways, but um, it's it's interesting because I've gone to like Columbus Crew games in my prosthetic, in my wheelchair, and in my forearm crutches. Now I'll do all of those three things. Now add a service dog. So I've gone to the crew games 6 different ways. Now I'm still an amputee, right? I still have spina bifida, and I still have scoliosis. But how the world sees me is completely different depending on which, I want to say, setup I use. So if I go without my service dog and in my forearm crutches, I'm fast. I weave in and out of people and they don't even notice until they look down. They're like, oh, you're missing something. I'll go, yes, I am. I'm missing my snacks. Like, I don't know where they are. Like, so I joke about it. If I have my service dog with me and I am with my prosthetic, it's like the doo doo doo, like 6 feet, please. Like we're engaging COVID rules. Like give us some space. And then it's always the like we want to touch your dog, and I'm like, please don't touch my dog. But then if I'm in my wheelchair, everyone's like, let the wheelchair go through. Like we can't touch it. Let it go through. So like to me it's hilarious, like to be like totally honest. It's like, so whoever I'm going to the game with, I'm like, what do we want today? Do we want people to bother us? Do we want people to not bother us? Do we want like how do we want interactions with the world today? And it's very interesting to be able to say that I've experienced all of those.
Yeah, and I think that allows you to give us that perspective, especially like the listeners that like can understand like, oh, okay. And you mentioned that you and Sarah are different and then painted that picture, so I really appreciate that. So it sounds like you're spending a lot of time in your prosthetic.
Yes.
Okay. Is that how you prefer to like get around and things like that or
I do. I like because like I grew up wearing braces, so you have like 5-year-old Katie roll out of bed, hobble to the bathroom, and then you like hobble back, and it's like put on leg to go and do your day. So that's just what I've trained my body to do. So it's the hobble out of bed. Now it's just put on prosthetic. So, I mean, it's nothing new. Now, there are days where, if it's like, weather fluctuations and like the volume in my leg changes, sometimes it's just you just don't wear it. Or today, I used my wheelchair to walk my dog because the fluctuation in the weather was causing like hip pain. So it's like, all right, do I walk my dog a half mile and be in pain the rest of the day, or do we go 2 miles and then he's happy? So obviously he won. So we went 2 miles, but I used my chair. So, uh, right? I don't want to say like I'm a chair user. I'm a mobility is a privilege user, and I'm going to use it how I see fit for that day.
Yeah, and that makes absolute sense, especially when you mention like the volume changes, because you have to have that prosthetics got to fit on, and I know that sometimes can be a frustrating process from some of the people I've spoken to.
Yeah, I'm still like a double shrinker at night. So, I'm 2 years out, and I'm like, I still have to wear the shrinkers, and I still do, and I still will. Because again, the next morning I want to be able to use my prosthetic to walk. So, but if I happen to not be able to use it, I have two other forms of mobility that I can use. I can use my wheelchair, and I have forearm crutches, which I'm very comfortable using. But then it's like it's the like I associate my forearm crutches with the sport that I play. I associate using my wheelchair if I want to walk more than 2 miles. I associate me using my prosthetic for my everyday like life. So each of those things have, different like meaning to me. So tonight when I take my prosthetic off, yeah, I'll use my forearm crutches to get around. I'm not gonna crawl around. That's weird. But it's like but there's no need for me to have my prosthetic on after I eat dinner. Like, because that's just, more hours in the prosthetic that I don't need to have. But, me going to school or me at my job, I need to be at like, and the best case scenario for me is to be in it. So I'm in it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I appreciate you kind of breaking that down for us so we can understand a little bit more. And then, if you don't mind, I'd love to talk more about your process for getting all your prosthetics, because it sounds like you got a bunch of prosthetics. And I bring that up because I talked to an amputee climber, and she was telling me like it can be a hassle sometimes, and that like her appointments are like a week long, and that they could even get to the end of the week, get everything set up, and it's still there's like some issues, and they like either might have to go back and try to fix it, and sometimes you get people that are just like you know in not a mean way, but they're just kind of like deal with it, I guess. Is and I don't feel like they would say that, but it seemed like that was kind of the vibe she was telling me.
So I'm very, very fortunate. I have a great relationship with my orthosist and my prosthesis. So put it to you this way, I texted my orthosist while I was in the hospital and I said, hey, his name's Jason. I need Jason's number. I'm getting my leg amputated. And I got a phone call from her. She goes, what now? Like, what? And, breaking it down to her, and she's like, all right, well, we'll already get you set up. So one, you have to go over the fact that like I have my person that does my braces number that I can call or text if I break something. But then you have to go back to the fact that that's how many things did I have to break to get the number. So it's all about rapport that you have with these people. Like Hanger Clinic isn't just an office to me; it's my mobility. It's how I move. So when I go in and I see them, I go up to the lady in the front, ask her how her son's doing, I ask her how her day is, and I go up to the lady in the back, ask her how her family is doing. I go up to the insurance adjuster because she saves my life all the time, and I do the same thing. But I've been doing that since I've been 16. So I have a different perspective and probably um, outlook on these things. One, because I know how long they take. So when I got the FabTech AFO, they make them on the Pacific Coast, and it takes 4 weeks. So I can't complain because they have to ship it out there. They have to make it, and then they have to ship it back, and I have to make the appointment. But when I get it, I can walk through and I can say, this hurts. I don't like this. Can we adjust this? And because I've been going there for so long, we have that mutual respect of, I'm not just saying this to be a pain. I'm saying this because it's my body and I know you need to adjust it. And the same thing kind of happened when uh, I kind of like co-built my prosthetic. So, you go in, you're below the knee amputee. So you think my prosthesis is like, sweet, I have a below the knee amputee. And then it's like, my quad doesn't work and I can't stand on my knee. So he's like, oh, so you need something to stabilize the quad, but also have a below the knee prosthetic. I'm like, yeah. So he has to talk with my orthosist. So the three of us are troubleshooting of how are we going to make this so it's a below the knee prosthetic, but a above the knee kind of brace. And just having that open and honest conversation with them of, well, what if we did this? I'm not gonna like that. Well, what if we did this? I'm probably not gonna like that either. They like they want to do like a certain type of strap, and I was like, I don't want Velcro on it. And they're like, okay, no Velcro. Uh, I when I was wearing my leg brace, I always had to have a knee pad. It was just a mental thing. Had to have a knee pad. Prosthetic now don't have a knee pad. So my orthosist always jokes with the prosthetist. That's like, how'd you get her to get rid of a knee pad? And he's like, cause I'm awesome. And I was like, cause I can suck. Like it just stays. Like I don't understand, but like it's that type of thing. A lot of it too is I know a lot of the laws for, um, my right to be able to move, what an insurance person can ask me, uh, what the keywords are when they're writing scripts. Quality of life is definitely something you need to write in. But I've learned that over the years because I've been disabled all my life. So uh, and some of these things do take a long time because they are expensive, and just kind of being like okay with that. uh, it is frustrating, but like if you look in my like closet right now, I have 5 AFOs. I Two of them I can easily use. Two of them I could break probably in 3 days if I played soccer in them. They would snap in it, and I would break them in half. And one of them would be if I like tore something in my ankle or like did like a high ankle sprain, and it would be like, wear that one until you heal. So yeah, it sounds like I have a lot, but two of them I can't use. One of them is fully locked, and then the ones that won't affect how I walk, I have one that is really, really good, and I have one that's supposed to just be used for sports. Um, but a lot of it too is, knowing what your insurance will cover, knowing how you can use the laws to give you the right to move, and your right to mobility, and being that pain and just fighting for you know, your quality of life. Um, Someone like right now, it's in like the legislature of like our like a running blade is to a lot of insurance people and companies is a luxury. So, and I think that's crap. So, like, you can go on a run right now. You don't have to switch your leg. So, people with prosthetics, that's a luxury. We don't need to run. We don't need to work out. So, insurance doesn't want to cover it. So, there's some laws right there. There's some bills right now in the legislation, like, trying to change that. So, it's like, but 2024, like, now we can start changing that. I'm like, really? thought we were better than that.
Yeah, you would think so, but the insurance and that goes all across the board. Insurance is just horrible, which is a rabbit hole that you could definitely go down. But you brought up an interesting thing that I, appreciate you sharing is the resources and knowing how to like use the keywords, the laws that that you need to know. Where are some resources for people that are maybe in the beginning of that process that they can go to find this stuff so that maybe they can expedite it or make it a little bit easier for them?
A lot of it is just looking at ADA, like the actual law from the Americans with Disabilities Act. And then depending on what state you're in, you have like for Ohio, we have Ohioans with disabilities, and like you can go to like that website and you can get someone who advocates for yourself. But like I'm traveling next week, and TSA is great with people with disabilities. Absolutely, like 100%. They never offend us. They never do anything wrong. I'm absolutely lying right now. It's great. Um, but for somebody who's new to traveling, do they know that you can register under TSA Cares? And with TSA Cares, they're supposed to walk you basically through security. But if you didn't know that, then how would you do it? Or a TSA agent can't ask you if you're in a wheelchair to stand up. So if you go through in a wheelchair and they say stand up, it's against their policy. So if I go in a wheelchair and they say you need to stand up, I go I need to see your manager because you broke your law, like your policy. Because if I broke my back and they're saying you need to stand up, I'm like, you're nice. Or they can't ask us to like remove our limbs. Like they can't ask us to do that. So a lot of it's just a lot of reading. Um, at least that's how I've learned a lot of like my stuff. Like an insurance adjuster can't prescribe medical equipment or like say anything like, oh, well, you should take this medication over this medication, or you need to get this foot over this foot because they don't have a medical degree. So they're prescribing medicine without a medical degree. So it's actually a civil suit that they could be involved in. So I always ask if they start doing that where they went to medical school and what their medical ID number is. Usually that gets me a little further in the line, but it's knowing those things. And with the newer amputees that I've talked to, it's you can't be mad at the knowledge you don't know if you don't seek out the knowledge that you want to know.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point too. Like take it upon yourself to learn, like, and that's like that's everybody, no matter what it is, learn it. It's like taxes and business. I mean,
mhm.
it's as simple as that. If you don't know it, it's your fault.
Yeah. So, I've already gone through like my flight itinerary for next week, and it's I want wheelchair assistance. Does that mean I need to be in a wheelchair? No, I want wheelchair assistance. I've already done TSA like the pre-approval. I have that all on my ticket like stuff. I'm gonna call TSA Cares 24 hours in advance, or 72 hours in advance. So it's like if I do all of that stuff and there's still a problem, then I can complain. But if I don't do any of that stuff, I view I cannot complain because I know all that information. So I need to do all that information. So um, any like I wanted more forearm crutches. So they're expensive. They're straight out of pocket. They're about $1,000. Unless you got $1,000 that you don't want to like send over here, great. I'm a teacher. I obviously don't have $1,000, but there's grants. So I apply for grants. So you go on the Google and you look for grants. But again, it goes back to the if you don't take the time to look for the grants, apply for the grants, and at least ask, it goes back to the you can't complain that things are expensive if you didn't try to figure out a way to get them. So, but again, that's a Katie thing. So
No, that's fair. I'm right there with you. Taking it upon yourself to learn, and like I know sometimes like it's easy to overlook things. We all get kind of bogged down, or you have like life instances, or like like you said, you did your travel plan, but maybe you just forgot one little thing. Stuff like that happens, but at least you're here sharing the resources and things like that, and you're giving people the advice that they can listen to this, and then now they're like, oh, okay, that clicks, so I can start looking at this. I can go look up grants, and it's as easy as going on Google and typing in grants for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. It's like we're in the technology age. You can ask Google or ChatGPT or whatever AI system you use, anything. So ask it. So like that's but again, that's my philosophy. It's like, you want to know how to, pay for like a climbing foot. Uh, it's ask the like different climbing companies, do you have a demo foot I can test out? It's not paying for the foot, but at least you can test it out. And if they say no, that's like, oh, do you have any like old ones? So at least like you get on the list of, hey, this person had an old foot, maybe they want to try it. So there's a lot of there's a lot of things that you can do just by asking, because the worst thing someone can do is say no.
That's true. A lot of people say no, or they just don't respond. That's just
Yeah.
the way of the world right now. But
Yeah.
like you said, taking it upon yourself to ask, right, is kind of the key word. And a lot of people are going to help you out, especially climbing companies are getting really good about doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's a great segue into our next conversation, because I saw some ice climbing photos on your Instagram, and I've
Yes.
been burning to ask you some questions about climbing.
It's all
So,
right.
do you like actively climb, or was that just like a one-time thing? I'm very curious.
So before my amputation, I was probably climbing 5 days a week. I actually went. It was a program called Paradox. That's what I. It was like right before COVID, and we went to North Conway and we ice climbed. So this is when I had my full leg brace, like had the shoe lift, all that, and uh, when you ice climb, you have these knives on your feet because have to like stick into the ice and use these like picks, and it's great.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I climbed with Paradox, it was awesome because, you know, climbing regular rock, I would never use my left foot. It'd always just hang there. If there happened to be a rock or a ledge that I could place my left foot on, I was like, bonus, awesome. But ice climbing, it was great because I would just throw my foot in. And I was like, I can use my left foot. This is so cool. So, like, it was so much fun. Since my amputation, I've climbed a couple times. Right now, it's really like the focus on amputee soccer. Last thing I want is to text one of my coaches and be like, "Hey, so I was jumping for this rock right now, and I missed, and broke my arm, or I tore my shoulder." So that's the last thing I want to have happen. But definitely after the World Cup, I want to get back into climbing 2 3 times a week. It's a great workout. They always say 3 points of contact. That's a little iffy with when one of your limbs doesn't work. So I always say at least 2 points of contact. You can do some pull ups and you'll be fine. But no, I love rock climbing. I actually have a foot that I'm going to try out pretty soon. So I can at least do that. I've climbed with my prosthetic on, my prosthetic off. Um, I'm definitely a lot lighter with the prosthetic off because it's a honker. But if the prosthetic's off, I don't have um, like I can't just like put my limb out and have something rest. I can't rest it on anything. So it's like my residual limb isn't stable enough to do that, and I don't like it's not safe to do that. So I would have to like configure something to like wrap around it if I needed to, rest my stump on to something, which I could probably make something, but it just hasn't been made right now. So, but yeah, definitely if you haven't gone ice climbing, 100% get out there, do it. It's awesome. Um, and just rock climbing in general, it's a lot of fun. Before COVID, I was about to get into lead climbing. So like
Yes.
I could do like a 5'10", 5'11", and this was with 3 limbs. So like
That's good.
I'm using a a wrist thing right now that
Little
like
gripper.
yeah, if that says anything. But no, it's I definitely love and miss it, but it's right now it's focus on soccer to and then get back into climbing.
Yeah, that's understandable. 'Cause, I mean, I understand soccer's got to take priority, but be careful because that climbing bug, I can tell you already got a little bit of it. And if you get any more, I don't know
Yeah,
about soccer.
yeah, I know. I was like, oh, I could have done the Paralympics for this because before COVID, I was actually on track. I was thinking about actually trying out, and they didn't know what class I would have been in because if I would have worn my brace, I would have been in one class. And if I wouldn't have worn my brace, I would have been in another class. And if I would have worn my right brace climbing, they're like, well, you could have been over here. And if I would have worn like so it's always like interesting looking at like my classification because they're like, well, you're spina bifida and but you're walking. I'm like, yeah, like that's okay. They're like, but your left side doesn't work, but your right side does. But your paper says you have this. I'm like, I promise I do. So it's I don't know how that would be classified. When I did wheelchair basketball for a little bit, I I had to like prove I had spina bifida and scoliosis because they're like, well, you're an amputee. I'm like, I have spina bifida, and they're like, no, you don't. I'm like, yes, I do. So with the classifications, if you have spina bifida, it's a lower number, but and the amputees have higher numbers. And I was like,
Oh, okay.
so I'm like, so if you would have met me 2 years ago, I would have been this number. And sorry, I had my leg chopped off, so now I'm a higher number. But my this genetic disability that I have is changing. So that's why I was just like, that's too much politics for me.
I got you. Well, if you end up do shooting for climbing and things like that, Ben Mayforth is a great person to reach out to. He's got spina bifida and he's been in the climbing community for ages. I mean, I talked to him. He was actually the first one person I interviewed, so it was kind of awesome. But and Worlds just happened. They're all back, I think, from Austria because it was
Yeah,
in Innsbruck.
yeah.
But yeah,
Seeing
that's
like
awesome.
different places to go, but I'm like, I still have a
Mhm.
job. Ugh. So
Ah, jobs. Ugh,
I
who needs
know.
them? Ugh.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Well, Katie, I appreciate your time tonight. I know you gotta get out of here and stuff like that, and
they got
it's
delayed because of the rain.
oh, that
So
got delayed.
yeah.
Okay.
So if you have any
Ooh.
other questions, I got time because they're on at least a half-hour delay.
Okay. Hmm. Well, you mentioned wheelchair basketball, so kind of interesting. How did that go, and how was that for you?
So wheelchair basketball and I have a very interesting relationship. And the reason why I say that is I was 10 years old and I needed to see, like, I needed a second opinion on a surgery I was going to have. And the doctor told my mom and I, and then this is me, I'm already playing soccer, I'm playing softball, I'm snowboarding, and I'm doing swim team in the summer. And she comes in, reads my file, and says, she should just play wheelchair sports. Why is she doing all the other stuff right now?
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what my mom
Yeah.
and I'm looking at her like I'm walking. Why are you telling me to go into a wheelchair? So like 10-year-old Katie just couldn't process that. So I was like,
Yeah.
never doing adaptive sports again. And then I'm a part of Adaptive Sports Connection. It was called Task at the time, and they're like, "Well, can you kayak?" I was like, "Yeah, because it's kayaking. I'll do that." Or can you snowboard? Well, yeah, I'm already snowboarding with you guys. And it's not, I just rode goofy footed and it was no like major like change. So I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it at all. I was just like, I don't want to be in a wheelchair at all. I don't want to do anything if it has, wheelchair near it. And one of my teammates who's in Columbus, was like, "Can you try wheelchair basketball?" I was like, "No, I'm not going to." And we're working out at one of our rec centers that lets people with disabilities work out for free, and they have one of the chairs. She goes, "Just try it." So I sit in it and I like wheel around in it. She goes, "Have you been in a chair before?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm disabled. Like, of course I've been in a chair before. Doesn't mean I like being in a chair." Um, so she finally got me out to one of the practices, and it was fun. But uh, as weird as it sounds, when you're the one walking into practice because you have a prosthetic and walking out, you just get looked at differently when everyone else is stays in their chair. And we all have disabilities, we all have our struggles. I just didn't like that about it. I didn't like that. I could stand up and walk away, and a lot of them couldn't. So that was just like that was mentally hard for me. So I was like, I'll just stick with amputee soccer and climbing. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I can see how that can kind of put that mentality and things like that. But because yeah,
yeah, it's a weird taste and it's kind of hard to swallow. It's the if I didn't have my prosthetic on, I would be hopping the entire time. But talking with the other players that have spina bifida, it's like we had the same doctors growing up. Like we probably saw each other in the waiting room, and I'm the one running around,
yeah,
and they can't. So it's like my case of like spina bifida and scoliosis is pretty bad. Like I should be fully like wheelchair bound. I'm just stubborn. Um, so it's kind of like I should be that, but I'm not. So it's like I'm grateful that I'm not, but I want to I want to give them that.
no, that makes absolute sense. And you just mentioned that like you should be wheelchair bound, but you're not. So like, is there things you're doing to like keep you from doing that? Like I know you said you're stubborn, which it's ironic you say that, and I can I can definitely tell that through our conversation. But like, you know, are there like daily things, whether it's like exercise, going to physical therapy, stuff like that? Because I mean, you still have the hanger clinic sweatshirt on. You keep mentioning them. So is it those daily things that you're doing that keep you out of that wheelchair, or is it,
100%.
what is it?
It's the morning stretching. As silly as it sounds, I stretch every morning. I have a really healthy diet. I work out. I see the sun. I go outside. Um, you know, it's those things that keep me out of a wheelchair. It's um, taking my medication when I need to. It's like I see a pain care specialist, so go to him. I get deep tissue massages like on the regular, and I'm honest with myself. If like Monday I had a bad day, like it was like my hip really hurt, and I'm not gonna go on a 5 mile walk and then do soccer practice and lift if my hip hurts that I'm icing it. And it's just really taking care of myself and having those honest conversations like in my head of, hey, you need to ice, go ice. And it's like, oh, fine. It's not like, no, you need to ice, just go do it. It's having that discipline of, the 20 minutes that I stretch in the morning every day will give me, maybe 2 weeks when I'm older that I'm not in a chair. So it's kind of, I always think about it in that perspective.
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective to have, because I think that's the thing that society's missing right now is they're thinking about now. They're not thinking about when they're 80 and wanting to, their families like, well, time to go to the home, instead of like remaining with your independence. And granted, your situation is totally different, but like it just aligns with that. Like that 20 minutes can give you, like you said, those 2 weeks, years from now, decades from now. And that's the important part.
Yeah. And I think that's something, I have a genetic disability and, I have an amputation, but, what's 20 minutes
Yeah.
in the morning? What's 20 minutes at night? So that's 40 minutes. We have what, what's it, 84,600 seconds in the day. Like however you use them, it's on you. So, um, I can spare 20 minutes when I'm watching like a soccer game to stretch. I can wake up 20 minutes early to stretch if that means I'll be functional that day. I'll go to bed early to get up. So it's like, I don't know. I've been doing it for so long that I don't think about it anymore. But I can see how that would be, a dramatic change for some.
Yeah, because like you said, you have the discipline, right? Years. I mean, like you said, years.
Yeah,
That's a
year.
long
Yeah,
time to put that, and I think it takes anywhere from what is it like a month or 3 months to really solidify a habit? It's something like that. I can't remember the number,
yeah,
but and then kind of going off of that, it's the fact that just small incremental changes, and that just goes to like that famous book everybody talks about by James Clear, Atomic Habits, which is great. You know, do you have any plans moving forward as far as like whether that be with soccer, your career, things like that?
Right now, I just kind of want to see where soccer takes me. The more that people know about amputee soccer, I think the better. And if that, I think Sarah probably said it, and we'll say it better than I will. It's not about me, it's about the kid 5 years from now. It's about the kid 10 years from now. It's about, laying that foundation for them. So if, whatever I do helps them, then I've achieved my goal. So, I, need to do like the fundraising. I need to do all these practices, but if that means that, the elementary schooler that's getting fitted for their first prosthetic, and then when they're in high school, they can say, "I had Miss Katie as a teacher, and I saw her like go through this, but now I can try out, and I can be a part of the World Cup team in 3 World Cups if I did my math right." Sweet. Like I think that's much more important than me going to the World Cup. It's about the next group that goes. Hopefully I'm in that next group. I don't think I'll be 40 yet. But, it's about that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's about the next generation, no matter what you're talking about. But yeah, and that's. Do you have any plans to like try to mentor or coach that down the road too, to like the youth coming up?
Well, I already coach like my soccer
Right, but I
team.
mean, like
Yeah.
in the adaptive kind of community and things like that. I know you're already doing that at your school.
I don't know. I need something to do when I retire. If I'm not busy, I'm bored. So it always there's always options. You always keep doors open. You never close them.
Awesome. So I take it people can follow you on Instagram, and then also USA Soccer does have an Instagram, right? The USA MPT Soccer
Yeah,
Instagram, I
there's
believe, and
a men's
Facebook.
and a women's team. I don't got the Facebook anymore, so that's all you. So, but I do have an Instagram, so it's at KEBONDY 52. See a picture of me like whatcha on crutches.
Fair enough. We'll definitely look out for you. Well, Katie, again, I appreciate your time this evening. It's been a great time catching up and getting to meet you and hear your story. And I can't wait to share this and publish it and get the awareness and the word out for you guys. And good luck, because I believe the World Cup's this year, and you guys are headed to that here in the next couple months or something like that, I
It's
believe.
November. It's like
November.
120 days. Could ask Alexa, but I don't want her to yell at me right now.
That's fair. Oh, I hate
Yeah.
those things. Oh, they're creepy. But anyways, that's that's a topic for another day, I think.
Yeah. November
But
2nd.
no,
So that's when we head out.
awesome, perfect. So we will definitely be looking forward to watching that, and we'll be following your story and your guys and the team.
Awesome. Sounds great.